And we are off of Egghead Island, which would also mean the end of the Egghead arc, although I guess nothing is official yet. But if chapter 1123 has the crew just sailing in open ocean with Egghead long behind them, then that would serve as sufficient evidence to say that this chapter 1122 is in fact the final chapter of Egghead, the first arc of the final saga. And there is no way that anyone could have predicted what would have happened in the past 60 or so chapters. There was the initial expectations that this arc would be different, would feel different, because it is the start of the home stretch, but nothing on this level. And if you say otherwise, if you say that you saw all of this coming, then you are lying, because there is just no way. And now that it is complete, or at minimum 99% complete, there's heavy implications and consequences for everything that did happen in this arc, both from our perspective as a reader, as well as that of the average civilian in the One Piece world. The ripple effects are looking to be huge, and just to let you know, the stuff that happened in this latest chapter will be covered at the end. The biggest event, of course, is the Egghead incident, an event that saw one of the 4 emperors battling against an admiral and the 5 elders, and from the people's point of view, while holding Dr. Vegapunk hostage. So a clash between 2 members of the 3 great powers and also the world's overseers, who descended to the lower world to personally deal with the situation, something that is completely unheard of. And all of this is heightened by Vegapunk's message, which questions the morality and legitimacy of those very same global superpowers for the whole world to see. For an in-world perspective, not including the other characters who know Luffy on a more personal level, this whole situation just looks like no one can be trusted anymore. They learned a lot of details about the events that led to the circumstances of present day, and just going off of Vegapunk's words, it would look like both sides are just as responsible. He spoke about the Mother Flame, the destruction of Lucia. Imagine hearing, as a regular person who's just trying to get by, that entire islands can be eviscerated in seconds. You hear about this great war where such a weapon and more were used that caused a catastrophic event, where the sea levels rose by 200 meters, and you're told that these weapons are still around today. The world government that they know today took part in this war, and after hearing about this advanced civilization, it looks like the world's rulers set the world back centuries. But then on the other side, Joyboy actively wanted to preserve these world-altering weapons, but for what purpose? Because surely it would have just been better to get rid of them in the hands of both good and bad. Such a power is just too much, so why preserve them? Both sides are looking liable for pretty much everything wrong in the world, and when you're told that said world is going to be submerged soon, what do you even do? How do you prepare for such an event? And on top of that, the fate of this world is dependent on pirates. Remember, like 95% of pirates are still bad people in the One Piece world. Luffy is just one of the exceptions. So when Vegapunk says this, it's similar to Roger's speech at the start of the story, Whitebeard's speech at the end of Marineford, and now Vegapunk's speech is like he's reinvigorating everyone. And then alternatively, from our point of view, we know that Luffy wasn't holding Vegapunk hostage, but the magnitude of the battle and information is just as big, and Vegapunk's death is just as important. It's still unclear as to what the details that will be spread about the whole incident are, especially regarding, say, the 5 elders, their actions, their true forms and all of that, where their morality lies. But I do expect in the future to see civilians reading the latest newspaper that reveals some more details about the incident to them, like how the view of the 5 elders will change in the public's eye. I'm pretty sure the One Piece world collectively knows about the existence of the 5 elders, but we already know that each of them are among the lowest of the low, ironically. And I am very much looking forward to how Emu reacts to them very much failing in their mission. I don't think Emu is the one who sent them, I think they just went on their own accord, but if they make a move, then surely nothing apart from absolute success is acceptable. Would Emu ever punish any of them for their wrongdoings, for taking the wrong course of action? If we go along with the idea that the elders have their own free will but are creations of Emu, does he have complete control over them? Of course they would never go against Emu, but could he take away part of their powers as punishment, or grant them even more power to better fulfill their roles? And maybe most important of all, I would guess that this blunder would force them to make their grand big move a lot sooner, since any time they thought they had has been cut short thanks to the message, thanks to Luffy and Bonnie the Giants getting away. So any plans and preparations they have set will need to be put into action a lot quicker. And we know that elbaf isn't affiliated with the world government and they can hold their own in terms of military might, but I wonder what the elders and emu actually know about that island, especially since they know that's where Luffy and everyone are now headed. That island is, say, one of the last remnants and arguably the strongest of remnants of the myth and faith of sun god Nika, and that is a fact of which I am 100% sure that the elders and emu are aware of. Given what happened to the buccaneers and the Lunarians, who each had their own tales and beliefs of Joyboy and Nika, I think all three of these races fought alongside Joyboy during the Void Century, and two of those were almost completely wiped out, with just King and Kuma left that we know of. So I assume the world government would have tried to do the same thing to the giants as well in the past, trying to eradicate Joyboy's name and Nika's belief, but elbaf was able to hold them off somehow. So that island of giants is like the last bastion, the last stronghold of the names Joyboy and Nika, and I don't think Emu is going to be too happy knowing that they, with enough might to hold off the world government, are convening with that very same guy from myth and history right in front of his eyes. He is going to be raging as soon as he's done shaking, that is. Then there's the whole Caribou situation, which so far is going exactly as I expected it to go. He's withholding the information that he has until he can meet Blackbeard face to face, since if he told Van Ogre and Devon directly about what he knows, they probably would have killed him. I mean, Devon is asking right now if they can kill him, even without knowing what he knows. So Caribou has guaranteed his life up until he meets Teach, who will then decide if his information is worth it, which it should be since Caribou knows about the locations of two ancient weapons, Poseidon in Fishman Island, aka Shirahoshi, and Pluton in Wano. So with all of this setup, Blackbeard's gonna get his hands on at least one of these two ancient weapons, and I think it will be Pluton. I've made a whole video about this, but with Wano being much closer than Fishman Island, I think the tail end of Yamato's cover story will showcase or hint at the Blackbeard pirates entering Wano for that weapon. And that's only the stuff that happened on Egghead Island specifically. Kid was almost killed by Shanks, and I am expecting to see him on elbaf, although he is not going to be the same arrogant hothead as he was previously. There's no way that he can get humbled so badly and return to being a loudmouth. There has to be some kind of change in his mentality, maybe the same personality, just not as extreme. The only issue I have though is that, although I think that he is still alive, what place will he occupy in the story moving forward? Because I don't see a clear path for him. What's left for Kid after he got one shot, his ship destroyed, his road poneglyph rubbings handed over? He's got nothing left. Maybe some of his crew survived by jumping into the water before Dory and Brogy's attack actually hit, but those guys, excluding Killer, are even more irrelevant right now. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but like, what is there left for the Kid pirates to do? Do you see Kid following Luffy? No, unless Shanks shook his worldview so badly that Kid now thinks there's no way for him to move forward without Luffy. A similar-ish situation applies to Law as well, although not as extreme given he put up a much better fight against Blackbeard than Kid against Shanks, and he also was able to get away. We know that elbaf, Winter Island and Egghead Island are all in very close proximity, so what if all three of Luffy, Kid and Law end up reuniting on elbaf, since it's in between the other two islands? So the Straw Hats travel from Egghead with the giant warrior pirates. Beppo, with the help of Dr. Chopper's drug dealing, manages to swim to elbaf, and Kid's half-dead body just washes up on shore. I can say a possible scenario where Law agrees to follow Luffy purely because of the history between those two pirate groups, and that all Law wants to know is the truth, and Luffy is his best chance at getting that. It will be framed as their alliance reforming, but in reality, just like before, Luffy is going to be in the driver's seat. And as for Kid, I'm still not 100% sure. Then there's Garp, who is definitely not dead. I mean, there's no chance he was killed off screen, but his capture could be a huge plot point that the story may revolve around up to the final war. Given his stature, this is an insanely more important situation than the Kobe one, because Kobe had Garp, but who does Garp have? Sword can't pull off such a stunt purely because of the fact that Monkey D. Garp won't be the one spearheading it this time. And in all honesty, will Akainu be willing to do something about this once the news reaches him? I highly doubt it. But even then, Garp is the hero of the Marines, the greatest that organization has ever had, and the greatest hero in the eyes of the general public. So if Akainu does refuse to do something, I assume there would be a huge uproar initially to Garp's capture, and then secondly to Akainu's hypothetical opposition to rescuing him. What if this is the first step of the Navy's downfall, or a great change that the Navy will undergo? A large group of Marines will defy orders and act to save Garp, Kobe obviously being involved. But it can't just be a repeat of what happened when Kobe himself got captured though. So another thing. Luffy is not an avid reader of the World Economic Journal, but I'm sure that he will somehow get notified of Garp's situation, and that will throw a huge wrench in his plans because Luffy's gonna want to save Garp. Look at what he was willing to do for Vivi, and Zoro had to talk him out of it. I don't see anyone talking Luffy out of going to save his grandfather if he sets his mind to it, especially when his captor is one of the people Luffy hates the most, being Blackbeard. But there's only one reason I can think of for Luffy not going to save Garp. Remember at Marineford when Garp didn't save Ace and there was a huge uproar about why he didn't do it? How a lot of people hated Garp for that, how he put his work before Ace, his family. A counter-argument to that being that he put the fate of the world ahead of his grandson, although the response to that is that he should have put family above all. Ultimately, I think that the reason why Garp didn't save Ace was because if he did so, he would be interfering with Ace's dream. No Marine should ever save a pirate, completely ignoring the fact that it was Garp's duty to not save Ace, to just sit by. He didn't do anything because he didn't want to interrupt Ace's dream, or his decision of being a pirate. So in that same train of thought, Luffy, I think the only reason he wouldn't save Garp is because Garp is a Marine. They each went down their own respective paths, although realistically I still think Luffy would go and save Garp at the end of the day. And finally, this latest chapter, just like Luffy, who split the sky on his own when he first went Gear 5, the Haki of the original Joyboy did the exact same thing above Egghead. And this, which is a great callback to what Nami learned on Witheria during the time skip, his Haki that scared the elders into returning to human form, and 3 of them retreating to Pangaea Castle, and even shaking up Emu from all of that distance away. So Luffy, with all the power he's gained recently, still has some ways to go before he can achieve that level. Emu being absolutely rocked to his core over Joyboy's Haki surely has to mean he's gonna take action a lot sooner, like I mentioned previously. And we never saw this, so I do wonder how the giants reacted to that Haki, because I doubt they would recognize it as Joyboy's straight away. But I wonder if in that library on Elbaf, where the Ohara research is being stored, there are a few tales about Joyboy and Nika. My overall point being here that this huge burst of Joyboy's Conqueror's Haki is like a signal, like everyone better be prepared for what's coming. And as for Joyboy himself, he looks to have a wooden arm and wooden leg like an old school, traditional or stereotypical pirate would, and I would also almost guarantee that he's got an eye patch on his face. And as for what race he is, he doesn't look to have wings or a flame on his back like that of a Lunarian or the bulky body of a buccaneer, so he just looks to be a regular guy. I hesitate to try and scale his height against Emeth, since size isn't the most accurately drawn in One Piece, but Emeth is the size of an ancient giant according to the wiki, which would put him at around 60 meters tall, and if my measurement, which I did without a ruler, are correct, then Joyboy is around a sixth of Emeth's height, so around 10 meters. Just shy of the height of even the smallest giants, which are about 12 meters if I remember correctly. So here is a crackpot theory for you that has no evidence. What if the original Joyboy is half human and half giant? The question of how that would have worked is invalid here because just look at Neptune and Otohime. They made it work, so why not here? Anyway, I've talked about this being the last chapter of Egghead, but on second thoughts I'm guessing it will be the next chapter since Saturn is still on the island, so we may see a bit more. This arc is comfortably top 5 for me, maybe even top 3. The first arc I've been able to read weekly in its entirety, but after that it's finally time. Elbaf! I honestly don't know what to expect because coming off of the craziness on Egghead, I'm expecting it to be a very lore heavy arc instead of battle heavy. but the island is literally called the War Land, whose pirates were feared worldwide, and then you have Prince Loki hanging around somewhere alongside any other possible giant royalty like Thor or Odin even. And there's even the giant tree Yggdrasil there. Maybe the giant royalty lives atop of that. Maybe that tree connects to a sky island and we'll finally see Enel return there from the moon. I don't know, but let me tell you that I can't wait.